I was told this was the key to my future. Instead, I found myself in a soundproof room at 3 in the morning, being told that if I didn't sign the document in front of me, I would never see the outside world again. The man across the table wasn't a criminal. He was the dean of St. Jude's Academy, one of the most prestigious preparatory institutions in the United States. He sat there, sipping tea, while 2 security guards stood behind me like statues. He told me that my rehabilitation was almost complete and that all I had to do was admit I was insane. If I signed, I'd get a scholarship to Harvard. If I didn't, I would be committed to a state-run facility before sunrise. This wasn't a school. It was a factory designed to break the elite and rebuild them as puppets. By the time I realized the Vanguard program was an illegal psychological experiment, it was already too late. I was no longer a student. I was a liability. This is the story of how an institution meant to protect the youth of America turned into a nightmare of authority abuse and unseen manipulation. To understand how I ended up in that room, you have to understand the allure of the Vanguard. St. Jude's wasn't just a school, it was a gateway. If you got in, you were destined for the Senate, for Wall Street, or for the Supreme Court. I was a scholarship kid from a working-class family in Ohio. When I received that acceptance letter, my mother cried. We thought we had finally won. The first few months were a dream. I was paired with a mentor, Dr. Eris Thorne, a man whose influence reached into the highest levels of the federal government. He told me I had a special spark, a level of resilience he hadn't seen in years. He invited me to join the Vanguard, an off-the-books leadership program for the top 1% of the student body. But the prestige was a mask for something much darker. The Vanguard wasn't about leadership, it was about total submission. It started with optimization sessions. We were told that to lead others, we had to be completely transparent. We were required to hand over our phones, our passwords, and even our medical records. We were told that sleep was a weakness, and for weeks, we were kept on a schedule of 4 hours of rest, punctuated by late-night interrogations, where Dr. Thorne would dissect our deepest fears and insecurities. He called it deconstruction. He said he was stripping away our childhood trauma to make us into titans. In reality, he was mapping our brains to find the exact buttons he needed to press to keep us under his thumb. By mid-semester, the atmosphere at St. Jude's had changed. The students in the Vanguard didn't look like leaders anymore. They looked like ghosts. We stopped calling home. When my mother called, a school administrator would sit in the room with me, holding a script. If I deviated from it, my privileges were revoked. I saw a girl named Maya, a brilliant pre-law student, get dragged out of the library because she had been caught with a personal diary. She wasn't seen for 3 weeks. When she returned, she wouldn't look anyone in the eye. She just kept whispering that she was grateful for the correction. The psychological abuse was subtle, but the financial manipulation was blatant. Part of the Vanguard agreement was a confidentiality bond. To stay in the program, our parents, or in my case, the scholarship fund, had to pay an additional $40,000 for specialized materials. When I questioned where the money was going, Dr. Thorne didn't get angry. He just smiled and told me that curiosity was a sign of a fragmented mind. He then showed me a video. It was me in my dorm room, talking in my sleep, saying things I didn't recognize, things that sounded like a confession of a crime. He told me that if I kept asking questions, the video would find its way to the police. They were filming us while we slept. They were using white noise machines to induce a state of suggestibility and then recording the results. The breaking point came when I found the basement of the medical wing. I had been sent there for a routine vitamin injection, a mandatory part of the Vanguard health regimen. But the nurse was distracted by an emergency, and I saw a file left open on the desk. It wasn't a medical file. It was a ledger. It listed the names of every student in the program alongside a dollar amount and a corporate logo. These weren't scholarships. We were being sold as test subjects for a private neurotech firm looking to develop high-stress obedience protocols for the military. The optimization sessions were actually data collection points for a psychological algorithm. We weren't the future leaders of the country, we were the beta testers for a new kind of slavery. I tried to run that night, but St. Jude's is a fortress. I was caught before I even reached the gates. That's how I ended up in that soundproof room with the dean. He told me that I was suffering from a break with reality caused by the stress of the program. He said the files I saw didn't exist. He said Maya had never been missing. He was gaslighting me with the clinical precision of a surgeon. He pushed a document toward me. It was a confession stating that I had stolen drugs from the infirmary and was suffering from drug-induced hallucinations. He told me that if I signed it, I could go to Harvard and all of this would be erased. If I didn't, the video of my sleep confessions would be sent to every college in the country, and I would spend the rest of my life in a psych ward. The authority of the institution was absolute. They had the money, the lawyers, and the reputation. I was just a kid from Ohio. I looked at the pen, then at the guards. I realized that if I signed that paper, I would be theirs forever. They would own my secret, and they would use it to control me for the rest of my career. I would become exactly what they wanted. A powerful man with a hidden leash. I didn't sign. I waited until the dean got up to take a call, and I did something he didn't expect. I didn't run for the door. I ran for the tea tray. I grabbed his tablet, which was unlocked and connected to the school's secure server, and I smashed the emergency fire alarm with it. The entire school went into lockdown. In the chaos of the fire department's arrival, I didn't go to the police, I went to the press. I knew that the police in that town were on the school's payroll, but the New York Times wasn't. The fallout was global. St. Jude's was shut down within 6 months. Dr. Thorne disappeared before the FBI could serve a warrant, and the dean is currently serving a sentence for a litany of financial crimes and child endangerment. But the unexpected outcome is the one that still keeps me awake. Even though the school is gone, the data they collected is still out there. Somewhere, in a server room owned by a corporation that doesn't officially exist, there is a map of my mind, and the minds of 50 other students. The moral of this story is that authority is not the same thing as integrity. Just because an institution is old, prestigious, or powerful doesn't mean it's good. In fact, the more power an institution has, the easier it is for them to hide the bodies. Watch the people who tell you they want to optimize you, because usually, they just want to see how much you'll bend before you break. If you've ever felt trapped by a person or a place that was supposed to help you, you're not alone. Share your experience in the comments below. Your voice might be the strength someone else needs to break free. Subscribe to Unspoken Stories for more deep dives into the shadows of power. Be careful who you trust with your future. Some people don't want to see you succeed, they just want to see you obey.